Welcome back to the Rich Eisen Show. All fans of LA Law know that song. Hill Street Blues, Doogie Howser, MD, NYPD Blue, just 4 of the shows that were produced and partially written by this television Hall of Famer who has now written a new book about his 50 years in television and also about his battle with blood cancer that he is winning every single damn day of his awesome life. He is Stephen Bochco here on the Rich Eisen Show. Good to see you, Stephen. How are you, sir?
I am in perfect health. That battle is won. It's over.
So it's not even winning, right?
I don't think so. I mean, you could talk to my doctor, but as far as I'm concerned, it's in my rearview mirror.
And so one day you just wake up, you're feeling a little bit under the weather. How long ago was that?
It was June of 2014, and I was taking my morning walk, and I just felt a little fatigued at the end of it and didn't feel right to me. And I thought maybe it was a function of a medication I was on. So
yes.
I figured, well, I'll get a blood test. And I went to my doc, and the next morning got a blood test, and he called me 2 hours later. And he said, where are you? And I said, I'm in my office. He said, can you come over? I said, why? He said, I don't want to talk about it on the phone. You go, oh my God. And I went over there, and he said, your blood panel is screwy and it's kind of above my pay grade.
Mm-hmm.
But he drove me, he literally put me in his car and drove me to a well-regarded hematologist in Beverly Hills who verified that something was really off.
And you had a specific form of...
Yeah, it turns out I had a very rare form of leukemia that they'd only seen about 200 cases of.
My gosh.
And I wound up spending, if you have to go through it,
yes,
I was in the most remarkable place you could possibly imagine.
City of Hope.
City of Hope in Duarte, California. I was there off and on for 4 months doing 3 rounds of chemo, and then I had a bone marrow transplant, and here I am.
And you just recently met the individual who was kind enough, wise enough to donate. And donate your DNA, donate your blood to find out if somebody on planet Earth is a match just in case something like this happens, let alone happens to one of the greatest television producers and writers in the history of the medium. And who was this?
Turns out, a young man by the name of John Kane, who was 23 years old when I had the transplant. And when I finally met him at City of Hope, I said to the assembled crowd, now I know why I go to bars every night. Because I've got a 25-year-old young man's DNA. And,
yeah. So now suddenly you're asking for dollar bills? Like, what's happening to your life, Steve?
Right.
What in the world is happening?
But he's a great young man, and I've seen him since. He lives in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And
so does that mean you're rooting for the Giants now as a Dodger fan?
No, you go too far. you go too far.
Yeah, and when you sat down, you asked me if I thought the Reddick and Rich Hill trade might be somebody to bring Chris Sale.
Yeah,
to the mix
Andrew Friedman is sort of known for his 3-way deals.
Yes.
I was just wondering whether that was the first.
Well, we'll find out. We have another hour and a half. There's nothing on that front, correct, Chris Brockman? You'll keep us honest on that
Yeah, not
front?
that I've seen so far.
Now,
1 p.m. or something.
So when did you first start going to Dodger games? When you first moved out here, essentially?
I used to cut school when I was growing up in New York and take the train out to Ebbets Field. When I was a little boy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's how long I've been a Dodger fan.
And so what do you think, as a storyteller of your own ilk and also stature, Vin Scully, as a storyteller, basically what he's doing, you know him too.
Vin was my neighbor for about 7 or 8 years.
Your next door neighbor?
My next door neighbor.
Like, look over the fence and that's Vin Scully.
Oh yeah, we would go and have dinner. And Vin is an American treasure. I count him amongst the 2 or 3 most remarkable poets, storytellers that we have. And just as an aside, I think it's criminal that a significant number of Los Angelinos have not been able to access Vin on DirecTV and other outlets over the course of the last several years. Terrible.
Well, there's been something going on here in Los Angeles on that front.
Yes.
And so with Vin being a neighbor, did you ever borrow like a cup of sugar, go over there, and there's Vin, hand in Stephen Bochco a cup of sugar or anything
No,
like that?
but we had some mutual issues that we had to deal with in terms of,
Well, there was a dispute, a
No,
fence
no,
dispute?
it wasn't a dispute. He had a legal dispute with the previous tenant. No, we got along great, and we went out for dinner a couple.
Did you ever think of putting him in one of your shows?
No, we never talked. He's got a day job. He's
No,
got
he's
a
no.
serious day job.
No, I know that.
I've
got Stephen Bochco here on the Rich Eisen show. So if you would be known as a Laker, my compadre Chris Brockman wanted to know, you would be the fill in the blank of TV. You would be the Magic of TV. Who would you want to be known as a long-term Laker?
Oh, just
Who's
an
your
old
favorite Laker?
My favorite Laker, I think, probably was Magic. I grew up. My son grew up going to the Forum with me to all the Laker games, and that was during that awesome era of the Showtime Lakers.
Sure.
And that was a wonderful era. And then they moved to Staples, and so did we. And they had another remarkable run with a different group. It's a great franchise. And
well, what do you think of it currently right now? Are you excited to go to Laker games this fall, for instance?
Well, that remains to be seen.
Yeah.
You hang in there because you're a fan.
Right.
I mean, that's what a real fan does.
Right.
You don't just say adios when they fall on hard times. But it takes a long time to rebuild, as you know. And so what you're hoping for isn't that, they're going to go to the playoffs and win a championship next season. What you're hoping for is that you have a team on the floor that's fun to watch, that's entertaining, that's competitive.
Yes.
And I think most Laker fans, after the last several seasons, will settle for that.
Stephen Bochco is here. Let's take a break. I want some of these stories in this book are fantastic. They are unique. They are hilarious. And I want you to unpack a couple of them when we come back here.
As it were.
As it were. You know what I'm going for right here, okay? Brockman, are you ready for this story involving Murder One when we come back here on the show?
Can't wait.
It is truly, I'm serious, this is one of the greatest stories I've ever heard. And that's not hyperbole. It is Truth is a Total Defense on Amazon right now and at StephenBochco.com. We're back with more in a moment. I'm back here with multiple Emmy Award winner, creator and executive producer of Murder in the First on TNT and also Hill Street Blues, LA Law, Doogie Howser, MD, NYPD Blue, Stephen Bochco. Moved out of my house and I'm looking in my garage and I'm going through all sorts of pictures and I've found a picture of me at the ESPN Zone in Baltimore in 1997 interviewing a gentleman who's coming to be a celebrity appearer at this event. It's Dennis Franz.
That's right.
Right there.
There he is.
When did you first meet Dennis Franz, Stephen?
Met Dennis on Hill Street Blues in 1983, something like that.
And did you see a leading man where nobody saw a leading man?
I don't know that I specifically saw a leading man, but I instantly saw one of the most compelling actors I'd ever worked with, ever.
Just on the spot?
On the spot.
Is Sipowicz the best character you've ever created? Where would you put him on that?
He's
realm?
Way up there. And
so who is the greatest character that you think you've ever created?
Well, it's like saying, which of your kids do you love the best?
Well, I have an answer. I wouldn't share it. You know what I mean? But is that wrong to say?
That's wrong to say.
Okay.
You're a bad person.
Okay.
I actually adore Doogie Howser. I love that character. I love Neil Patrick. That was a special show to me, even though it was kind of off the beaten path of what I normally do.
Yeah.
I had great affection for that character.
How old was Neil Patrick Harris when you cast him?
He was 16.
16 years of age.
I'm going on 12.
What do you?
He looked like a 12-year-old kid.
What do you think about what he's become?
It's remarkable. I'm so happy for him. He's a multi-talented performer, and he used to, even as a kid, he said, I want to be a director, and can I follow you, everybody around? Yes. It's an open door anytime.
When you started Hill Street Blues and people were wondering, why would you not wrap up the entire plot line in just one episode, just like every other 1 hour does? How much resistance did you get when you created something that now every show does?
We didn't get a lot of resistance. I think everybody involved in the project realized that we had created something that you couldn't fit single stories into in a given episode. We had, I think, 11 regular characters, and that's a lot of mouths to feed. And you can't tell 11 stories in an hour of television. And so, by necessity, these storylines spilled out over 3, 4, 5, 6 episodes at a crack. And I remember maybe in our second or third year, somebody came out to do an interview with us for a national magazine, and we sat him down and we showed him, 40 episodes of Hill Street Blues. And he came back and he was kind of taken aback, and he said, it's the only show that I've ever seen that has a memory. And, that was key to the success of that show and key to what we were trying to do.
And you created the previously ons to make sure that people get caught up to speed.
Yeah, as best we could.
Right.
Sure.
And then Murder One, where you take the idea of, instead of having a memory from season to season, you end the memory at the end of the season, just a self-contained season, although it's a storyline that goes from one to the next.
Right. Murder One was inspired by the O.J. case, when I thought, people were so fascinated by that story that I thought, well, you can't ever really do a law show anymore that's episodic. People are beginning to see how the law really works. And so I thought Murder One would be a great show to do.
And so you cast in the lead role of Murder One, Daniel Benzali.
Right. And Daniel was a wonderful actor who had appeared on more than one occasion on NYPD Blue, and he was not what you would call a typical leading man, but I believed in his talent, and so we hired him.
And so what happened when he was on Murder One,
well,
Stephen?
Before I tell you what happened when he was on Murder One, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Did you have your dump this morning?
Not to get too deep in the weeds, but yes. Yes.
Did you come to work on time?
I did come to work on time, yeah.
All right. So...
What?
I told you, Chris, this is going to be great.
What?
Yes.
One of our producers comes to me, and she says, we're having a real problem with Daniel, and can you help? I said, what's the problem? She said, he's coming to work an hour late every day, and it's costing us a lot of money. An hour of production time.
Time is money.
Time is money.
Yeah.
So I called him in at lunchtime, and he came in, and I said, Daniel, can I help you solve a problem? I said, they're telling me that you're an hour late every day.
And what did he say?
And that costs a lot of money. He said, my problem is that I live in Malibu, and it's a long ride in. I said, well, get up an hour earlier and come to work on time. He said, well, I can't leave until I have my morning sit down. My coffee and my morning sit down.
Makes sense.
I said, how about this as a concept? I said, when you get up, don't have your coffee. Ergo.
No morning sit down.
No urge. Get in your car, come to work, then have your cup of coffee and have your dump in your trailer. He says, I can't do that.
Makes sense.
He says, I love Malibu, and I can't go to the bathroom anywhere but in my own bathroom. And
so he's a home team guy. He could not go be the away team.
Apparently not. And so I said, well, how about this? I said, get up an hour earlier, have your coffee an hour earlier, have your sit down an hour earlier, get to work on time. He said, no, because I got to learn my lines the night before, and I need my sleep.
So what was the solution to this whole
Well,
thing?
so I said, I have another concept. I said, what if we rent you an apartment across the street from the studio that you can live in
Yes.
Sunday night through Thursday night?
Yes.
And then you can sleep as late as you want, have as much coffee as you want, have as many dumps as you want, and you'll still get to work on time. He said, I can't. He said, Malibu is my sanctuary. I just can't live anywhere else. I said, do you mean to tell me that there's no way we can solve this problem? And he said, I don't know what to tell you. I said, okay, go back to work. And at the end of the season, I replaced him.
You vacated him from the show?
I vacated him. I evacuated him from the show.
That is unbelievable. What do you think of that, Brockman? Would you ever lose a job over the fact that you've got to go in your home spot?
Well, I will say this.
Yes.
I can go number 2 anywhere and have. This was not.
Are you really proud to actually say that into a live microphone?
Sure. I have gone number
That's
2.
what that was on the floor over there.
I have gone in the nastiest bars and restaurants. When you got to go, you got to go.
Certainly when there's a network TV job on the line, Stephen, wouldn't you think?
That is insane.
Go figure. Go figure.
Craziest story you've had in 50 years. Is that yes or no? Craziest story?
It's up there.
It's up there. And
There's a lot of them in there.
It's in truth is a total defense.
Do I have 30 more seconds?
Sure you do. Absolutely.
A little over a year ago, after I had recovered, and I wanted to write a book so that there was a sort of a chronology of my career for my kids to read. And Rich and I were having dinner, and I said, I was thinking of doing this, and I was thinking of contacting a journalist who could spend some hours just interviewing me so I could haul up all of these memories of 50 years of television. And he said, I'll do it. And I said, get out of here. You have a day job. You're a busy man. He said, no, I really would like to do it. I said, we're both half drunk. We were having a nice dinner.
And don't forget Susie staring at me sort of like, what do you think about that idea
right.
too? Yeah.
So I said, let's talk tomorrow. And we talked the next day, and he said, no, I'm serious. I'd really like to do it. And I said, okay. And Rich came over to my office every Thursday for like 2 hours with a little digital recorder and grilled me mercilessly over 50 years worth of career memories.
Well,
and the rough transcripts of those interviews, constituted what
well, like
the
I
finished
said,
product
Stephen, look, the amount of enjoyment you gave me and my family growing up and throughout all these years, it is the least I could do. Also knowing you as a person you are, congrats on feeling how great you are.
Thank you.
How great you look. Truth is a Total Defense. Check it out. Go to Amazon.com or StephenBochco.com. Thanks for coming in here.
Thank you.
You got it. That's Stephen Bochco here on The Rich Eisen Show. More phone calls.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.